Live from the Glasgow Electric Plant Board, Glasgow Wants to Know. With your host, Mr. Uhel Barrickman.
Good evening. Tonight we have with us the three candidates for the position on the Glasgow School Board, Independent School Board, which will become available on the 1st of January. The three candidates are Billy Ray, Mrs. Philip Whiteside, commonly known as Cookie, and Jeff Lile. And I will start the questions by asking each one of you to give a brief background, as a brief history of your background and education. And I'll start with you, Mrs. Whiteside.
Well, my name is Cookie Whiteside, and I was born and raised in Glasgow. I graduated from Glasgow High School in 1961. Then I attended Vanderbilt University and graduated from Vanderbilt in 1965 with a degree in history and English and with a teaching certificate. I moved to Louisville and I taught high school English and history for 5 years in Louisville. In 1968, I married my high school sweetheart and next-door neighbor, Philip Whiteside. We moved back to Glasgow in 1970 when Philip set up his dental practice. I taught for 1 year here in the middle school, and then my first child, Jane Ann, was born. I have two other children, Julie and Will. Jane Ann is a UK graduate and is now working on her Master of Teaching degree at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. Julie is a recent graduate of Transylvania University with a degree in elementary education, and Will is a junior in high school.
Mr. Lyle.
Well, Mr. Barrickman, I was also born and raised in Glasgow. Went through and attended and graduated Glasgow High School, and attended Western Kentucky University. Came back. I also married my high school sweetheart. Also, I need to say that. And presently employed at R.R. Donnelly for the past 18 years. I have two children, ages 10 and 6, in the Glasgow system now.
Billy Ray.
Well, I'm going to echo the other two. I too was born and raised here in Glasgow. Went through the Glasgow schools, graduated from Glasgow High School in 1972. From there I went to Western Kentucky University. I majored in civil engineering, became a registered professional engineer. I too married my high school sweetheart, the former Mary Mercer. That occurred in 1974. And I went to work at Bowling Green Municipal Utilities while I was still in school, and continued there after I got out, and held a variety of jobs until finally in 1983 I got the opportunity to come back to Glasgow and work here at the Glasgow Electric Plant Board. In the meantime, we've had two children, Bradley, who is 18 and just graduated from Glasgow last year, is presently at Western Kentucky University, and Lauren, who is in the 7th grade at Glasgow Middle School.
Site-based council of each of the schools. Back to you, Billy, since I think you served on a council.
No,
you didn't serve on the Green Street Council?
No, it wasn't me.
Whatever
happened wasn't my fault.
Whatever happened wasn't your fault at Green Street. Well, what happened there? That was
I don't know, but
fault?
I thought you had something in mind. The reason
well, I thought maybe you did. I thought we just cleared up right quick.
No, I don't know of anything, and I didn't serve on that council.
Okay.
I know several outstanding citizens did.
What is your conception of the role of the council?
Well, you mean how I think it should be, or how the Reform Act meant for it to be?
Well, you were going to have to go, whether you like it or not, in accordance with what the Reform Act is until you get the legislature to change it. So from the standpoint of what it is supposed to do according to CARA, if you know, and whether or not you think it should be changed.
Well, I understand that the objective was to put management of these different schools right at the local level, you know, closest to the battle lines. And I know that the framers of the Act had in mind broad powers for those boards. actually handling the budget, hiring and firing the principal, at least participating in the hiring and firing of the other staff, teachers and paraprofessionals. I run hot and cold on whether that's good or not. I like certain aspects of it. I love the pressing down of that decision-making activity to the ones with the most expertise there. I think it's a little unfortunate that the act was framed in such a fashion that the parents have such a minute role in what's going on. The deals are stacked where that the principal is in charge, and there's always going to be a greater number of teachers than there are parents. So in my observation of how they actually work, I think it leaves some to be desired. I don't know how to prescribe what the solutions are, but from what I have seen, the parents' role is a bit cosmetic, and unless those parents that are involved in it are really persistent in promoting their ideas and trying to stick to their guns on what they want to do, and are fairly fearless in their attempts to wrench some power from the board and go ahead and use it at a local level, then they seem to be not as functional as probably what the framers of the act had in mind.
Cookie, suppose you explain from your standpoint as a present member of the board what the councils have done and how you perceive them.
Well, the site-based councils are responsible for making decisions at their individual schools, what is best for their students as far as instruction and materials go, and I think they should make these decisions. What South Green Street students need, their needs might be different from those at E.B. Terry or those at Happy Valley. I think the system's working well in Glasgow. We haven't had any conflicts with the site-based councils. Now, as far as the parent versus teacher ratios, I don't have a problem with that. Your real professionals there are the teachers, and they probably, as far as instructional decisions, are the ones that need to be making those decisions with the input of the parents. And
do you see any need for the structure of the council to be changed?
Not particularly, and I've had no one say that to me.
Jeff, I understood a moment ago that you either had or was serving on the council. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I have served a year of site-based council at Happy Valley. That was a very good experience for me. I understand the concern that's been expressed to me a number of times about the number of parents versus the number of teachers on the council. But I think it worked very well at our school at Happy Valley because you were dealing with professional teachers and you were dealing with parents that genuinely wanted the best for the students. What was your question? How the site-based councils act?
How it functions?
How it functions? Well, during my term as a council member, it was the first council of the school, which we developed the policy manual that would be implemented by the principal and the teachers.
Briefly give something with...
The policy manual consisted of policies dealing with curriculum, discipline, hiring, retention, things along that line, textbooks, and I'm not ashamed to say that when it came to the curriculum discussions, I had input, but I did bow back to the teachers that certainly had that experience and that knowledge. I think the site-based councils are a very good thing. It does bring some of the decision-making powers at the school level.
May I say something?
Yes.
I agree with what Jeff is saying. I don't think you necessarily would have an adversarial relationship between the parents on the council and the teachers if their goal is the best possible education for the children. If there's no other agenda there, it should work quite well.
Yes, it should. That's the key. Have the agenda on the table, and the agenda being the welfare of the students.
Exactly.
There's no place on any of the school councils, in my opinion, for any hidden agendas. Your outlook has to be for the betterment of the students and the school.
And that's the same thing for being on a school board. I mean, your primary goal has got to be what is best for the students.
Based on your experience, Jeff, do you perceive any need to change the functions of the council, either by increasing its powers and responsibilities or decreasing them, or?
I think at this point, I wouldn't increase any of the powers until the community has been indoctrinated with really what the councils are for. These are still a fairly new thing to some of the schools. And you don't need to go overboard just right off the bat. Let things get moving along. People understand what they're for, the real reason they're there, and as long as you have, like I said, the professional staff that the Glasgow school system has at every level that I've seen, you're not going to have that that adversarial environment.
Billy, I take it that you think that there should be more parents on the board. Are there any other recommendations that you would have insofar as increasing the power and the responsibilities of the council, or decreasing it? You have any other ideas about changing it?
Well, Mr. Barrickman, I don't necessarily believe that there needs to be more parents on there. It's a problem. I don't know if that's, that's obviously one of the things that needs to be considered. I think overall the mission, the message I was trying to get out is that for some reason parents are not as involved in site-based councils as I know the people that passed that legislation intended for them to be. Whether it is just the ratio, the feeling that they are not going to be able to do anything more than rubber stamp what else is going on. It could, I know that at least part of it that needs to be improved is just the communications between those councils and the communities. People need to know what's going on, what's the agenda, what happened after it was over with. How do parents, is there not some methodology through some newsletter process or something that the parents whom are being represented on those boards cannot get some idea of what's going on? I know they're open meetings. I don't pretend to act that they don't have an opportunity to become involved, but in the real world, with the number of people that are households that have both parents working, and I don't know what time of day we're having these meetings or what have you, but my perception is, at least the ones I've been involved in at the high school, is that there are ways to bring the parents in to become more involved through the extra communication, more open and robust publication of the agenda and the results. Even the elections, the opportunities for parents to become involved and submit their name. The way we've been doing it, at least in Glasgow, is that these different schools have had these elections on different days, and unless someone is a real student of the fine print of the newspaper, the opportunity for them to find out what's going on and how to get involved has been one that is at least improvable.
Well, is that the fault of, whose fault is it then?
That's a great question. I know that the idea behind these school-based councils in the legislature was for the parents to run the parents part of it, for the parents to run the parents' election and handle the way the ballots are done and count count the ballots and what have you. In reality, though, when you have a couple of parents who are ending a term on one of those councils, and these are unpaid positions, busy people that become involved in these councils are classically already busy people anyway. For the principal of that school to look at those parents and say, hey, it's your job to get this thing advertised in the paper and to try to coordinate it with these other schools to make sure the election's all on the same day and what have you, is difficult to get done. You cannot, how it is to try to insist that a volunteer accomplish a task in a certain fashion. It has been left in a gray area.
Well, wouldn't you say that the responsibility for communicating these things to the parents lies with the council?
Yes.
Well,
so.
Then,
but who do you,
the council could, I would assume that the council could mandate that somebody in the school system would send out these notices and so forth.
I would think that they could, yeah.
I think parents are notified, and it is one of the most disappointing things is the lack of participation on the school councils, not only in people running for the office, but the number of people voting. It's abysmal at the high school. And people are busy. They do meet in the afternoons, the councils do, and it's hard for a lot of people to do that. And I think most parents are willing or have enough faith in the professionals and the teachers that, they're going to do what's best for the children, and so they don't feel the need to get directly involved. And I'm a big believer in parental involvement, and we need to improve this in the system. And I don't know how to do it. You can send out so many notices, you can put it in the newspaper.
In the past year, actually, or a little longer now, particularly ever since the last governor's campaign, there's been quite a discussion, quite an argument going on about tests and test scores and the type of testing. Perhaps to be most fair about this, I should ask Cookie the type of testing that is done here, and then we can get into whether something should be done about it.
Okay, now, when you say the type of testing, you're talking about the Curious test.
Right.
Well, we do that.
Well, would you explain where the argument is and why some say that it should be changed and why it's not fair and why it doesn't actually test the ability of the student?
Well, I think most people need to be aware that a lot on the Curious test have been fine-tuned. Some improvements have been made. For example, we are going to start having multiple choice questions on the Curious test, which should make most people happy. Let's see, what other complaints?
Well,
The type of the open-ended questions.
The open-ended questions. It's been quite a controversy.
Open-ended questions, essay questions, test a whole lot more knowledge than true, false, multiple choice, and short answer questions. Open-ended questions not only test your knowledge of basic skills, mathematics and capitalization, punctuation, but can you apply this knowledge? And if you cannot apply the knowledge, it's useless. Unless you want to be on Jeopardy and be a candidate on Jeopardy and maybe have just some basic facts that you can spit out. But Curious drives the instructional programs. It forces teachers to teach children how to think critically, how to solve problems, how to apply their knowledge, how to work in groups, and especially how to communicate their ideas through the written word, by being able to write clearly and concisely. And I think that is a real positive on Curious.
Jeff, do you have any comment to make about the CARA testing, the present program, and insofar as you're concerned and based on your experience on the council, do you think changes should be made, or? What's your perception?
What I have heard, getting back to some of the complaints, I think some of the complaints about the curious testing is that some parents maybe feel like there's too much emphasis placed on the test scores. While the test scores are certainly important, that does represent supposedly how your school is doing and where they stand in the scheme of things throughout the state. Whether or not improvements should be made to the test, to be honest, I've not seen a test. As I understand it, they test the 4th, 8th, and 11th grades, I think. Is that right?
That has been changed. That's the way it was in the beginning. The 4th grade teachers and the 8th grade teachers, I mean, they really had a lot to do. They had all the testing, they had the writing portfolios and the math portfolios. One way Kara has been fine-tuned is to spread that out among more grades, so that now you have
5th grade's involved in that now.
4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 11th, and 12th are tested. And I think the writing portfolios are 4th grade and 7th grade, and the math will be 5th and 8th, although they've been suspended for a little while.
Now
That's been a real improvement.
Explain for the audience what you mean by portfolio.
Well, this is a collection of a student's writings, different types of writings. They may have to do a persuasive piece, they may have to do an essay, they may have to write a poem. And it's a collection of their writings during, say, their 4th grade year. And they work on these a lot.
Billy, what do you think of the portfolio system, and do you have any comments or complaints or suggestions about tests?
Well, Mr. Barrickman, I believe that the portfolio system and the testing are simply tools that these professionals use to ascertain whether the customer is being satisfied. The overall, it really doesn't matter to me if they use these tests or if they just offer effective prayers to get these kids to learn. In fact, I think that every single human being learns in a different way, that there is no overall test that anybody can devise that will sufficiently test the learning capacity of all these hundreds of thousands of individuals we've got going through these schools.
That's true.
And that if I think that more and more, if any change needs to be made, more and more latitude should be given. In fact, these teachers should be empowered and expected. They come in with advanced degrees. They've been through a stringent process to be certified to be a teacher. Then I would expect them to come in and use portfolios, tests, whatever they deem in their judgment, and when they look at these children out there, what they think they need to do to decide whether they're pushing the right button for these kids. I understand that the state has got to mandate a number of guidelines that these accomplishments or these mile markers that need to be measured with these kids, but the central issue ought to be that we're going to hire professionals, that those professionals are going to be supervised by other professionals, and that they should be guarding their own profession by making sure that they're all doing the kind of job and turning out the kind of product that the board representing the people of Glasgow expects to be turned out.
Well, now, let me take you a little bit further in your thoughts there. Presently, the site-based council does the hiring of the teachers. Now, should the act be changed, so that the site-based council would also have the authority to fire a teacher? Of course, under certain circumstances, they can be fired now, but not based on the things you were talking about a moment ago, not being good teachers.
Right.
Once they get certified and so forth, it's virtually impossible to remove them, regardless of whether they're producing in accordance with the way that you say and think that they should be producing. Now, do you think the site-based council should have that power and the act should be changed to give the council that power?
I'm delighted that you had to pick the most controversial question to start with me on.
Well, I'm going to go around.
Oh, okay.
On all of you. I'm just not going to pick on you.
Okay, well, thank you.
But you led into it.
So you're basically saying it's my fault then?
No, you just led into it. Go
Okay.
right ahead.
Well, I think the answer is a qualified yes. I think somebody should have the latitude, whether it's the principal, the site-based council, the board. I'm not sure. I think we ought to try one and see if it works, and if it doesn't, try something else. But I really am concerned that these empowered professionals that I am suggesting that we create should also bear the burden of responsibility, that if they're empowered to use whatever tools they want, that they deem effective to accomplish these goals, that they should be measured against those goals. If they don't accomplish them, they should be reminded in some annual, whether it's annual or monthly or whatever, but they should be measured against a set of goals, so that the community can ascertain whether they're getting the kind of product that they're asking for.
Cookie, I'm sure you've got some comment here one way or the other.
Yes, I mean, you have got to monitor teachers and, like Billy says, make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I assume you were talking about tenure being very hard to get rid of teachers.
Yes.
Teachers do not get tenure till, what, after 4 years?
4 years.
And let me tell you, you know if somebody's going to be a good teacher or not before those 4 years are up. I mean, there is a... If they're not, then you just don't renew the contract. And that can very easily be decided before they get tenure.
Point well made. Jeff?
Well, a qualified yes is a very good answer to that question. If you're putting people on a council and asking them to be responsible for hiring teachers, not only are you asking them to hire them, but you're asking them to hire the right ones. And I think that's a double edge. If they're going to be responsible for that, they should also have the authority to correct a mistake.
They do, don't they?
Within guidelines, of course.
Yeah. They've got that power. If the teacher doesn't have tenure yet.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, the council's
yes,
have that
tenure
power.
out of the picture.
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a long, drawn-out process. I think you were involved in something one time not too long ago with the review of applications that you go through, the procedures that you go through with the central office to get applications reviewed and so forth. That's a good thing because they're screened to some degree before they get to the council, which is good, but the council does not have to take any of the applications that are given to them. They could go through the whole, ever how many applications have to be on file if time would permit them to do that.
Yeah, that is a part of the present system.
Yes.
As
Yes, sir.
you have pointed out, you don't have to take the ones that are submitted to you, that is, the council doesn't, and then they can demand more and eventually can come up with teachers that should be able to satisfy them.
I'd like to, if it's okay, could I sharpen my clarification a little? Since I said it was a qualified yes, after hearing the other answers and having a minute to think about it, I think I would feel more comfortable, because the original question was, do you think site-based or school-based council should have the power to fire?
Yeah.
I would feel much more comfortable in my qualification of saying yes if the recommendation first came from the principal, who is a professional. And the way I structure my view of those schools is it's like a little business, and the principal is the CEO, and that I don't think lay people that just happen to get lucky and be hired as a council member should be able to start the idea of saying, I don't like Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. They should only be able to certify or disagree with a recommendation made by a professional, and that would be the principal.
I think that's a really good point. The principal is the instructional leader of the school, and the principal is the one that monitors the teachers and how well they are doing their job. And the principal is the professional that can recognize this and should make recommendations to the council.
That's true. And when you're dealing with the professional people, the level of professionalism that you have in this system, if you have such a recommendation, you'll know that it's been well thought out.
Right.
And it would be adequately discussed at the council level. You're not, in this system, I don't think you're going to have one or two council members just decide that they want a teacher removed.
Because they get mad at the teacher for
that's
some
true.
reason. Right.
That's true.
There is, and I noticed in an article in today's Courier Journal about disciplinary problems and how the schools are tightening their disciplinary policies. I'll start with you this time, Jeff. Based on your knowledge of the present system, do you think that the disciplinary policies of the Glasgow system should be strengthened? Or do you think they're about right now? Or what is your opinion of, well, for instance, you undoubtedly had input when you were on the council insofar as the disciplinary policy of Happy Valley was concerned.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that that policy was strong enough based on your observation of it after it was put into place?
I think the policy that was developed at Happy Valley was more than adequate for that particular environment. That policy, you could not take it to a high school necessarily and implement that policy. You're dealing with different elements, different children, different age groups. With different age groups, you have different problems. Presently, I don't think we have a discipline problem in the school system. I think it's handled very well. I do believe in discipline. I grew up with discipline. I grew up respecting the teacher's authority and the school's authority. And when you lose that, it's very difficult to get it back. And you could tighten discipline, possibly in some areas, and not hurt anything. But I think overall we have a very good discipline in the schools.
Cookie?
I agree. We have very good discipline in the schools. I think when you set discipline policies, you've got to use some common sense. And I think that we have seen in the media lately a good example of political correctness gone amok when you have a 6-year-old accused of sexual harassment. That's ridiculous. You know, a 6-year-old misbehaves, has bad manners, does not do the right thing, and you take the child and you say, you don't do this anymore. But to accuse him of sexual harassment and suspend him from his class or whatever, I mean, there's no sense to that. Now, as you get older, when you get in the high school or the middle school, you do need policies on that sort of thing. But not with a 6-year-old.
Billy?
Well, I believe there's room for improvement in discipline in our schools. I haven't seen it at the elementary level, but I have kids in middle school, and I just had one in high school that graduated last year. And both my kids and the ones that circulate through my house talking about it, I think the majority of them feel that things could be a bit tighter. I believe when I said early on that one of the things that the board should do and that the administration should do for the educators is remove obstacles from their path. And I really believe that whether the kids are going to be behaving or fighting or doing other things that cause the education environment to be diminished should be taken out of the teachers. It ought to be off their radar screen. They shouldn't have to worry about that. It should be a given, especially in our society today when so many people are struggling, trying to raise kids by themselves, and maybe a lot of the discipline that's been, at least our generations, was a given when we were coming up, is just not there because there's not enough people there to implement it. It should be one of the things that they learn about society going through schools, is that we have rules. After they get out of school, those rules are turned into laws, and the one thing that I hope we're communicating about our democratic system is that those rules are serious. They're applicable to all, no matter what your last name is or who you know or who you're related to, that discipline is going to be swift and exact, and it applies to everyone across the board. And I think there are some improvements that we can make in that area.
How?
By the board setting that as a high priority for those who are entrusted with the job of accomplishing that discipline, and make sure that it's ranked right up there with, I believe test scores will follow. At least the kids I talk to think that they'll do better in school if they are less fearful of fights breaking out or what have you, that makes them feel like the environment is not perfect when they're at school.
Well, am I to assume, and correct me if I'm making the wrong assumption here, that you think that the discipline policy for the entire school and each school should be determined by the school board rather than the site-based council?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I have a real problem with worrying so much about the written policies. This is exactly what Cookie was talking about, that these other schools have gotten in trouble. They've gotten so ensnared in having every single violation carved out in stone, that thou shalt not do this, that the people that are forced to implement those regulations have to look, well, we've written this down. Now, even though this kid just gave another one an aspirin, that's a drug, and we've got to suspend him. I think it's ridiculous that the number of policies should be refined. We need less and less policies and more emphasis on those principals and those professionals that say, look, we want to hire people that have good judgment.
Right.
And when you have a question about that, then refer to somebody else in the school system if your judgment is in trouble. But the first thing we should do is try to hire people that have good common sense and tell them we want discipline in our schools. We want these kids to be here in a safe environment where they can learn and where these professionals can do their job. And the people that cannot follow the rules and cannot keep from disrupting the other learners, then we should have a very swift exit for them. Out.
Now I see where you're going. My next question is, it's not exactly a question, it is, I guess, giving you a little information. The state school board and the administrative requires these disciplinary policies and require that they be adopted. And of course they're doing that under CARA. Now, do you think, I take it that you think that should be changed insofar as CARA is concerned?
Well, to my understanding, the policies that have been dictated by the state are very broad. Yes, they say you shall have a discipline code. They give a lot of latitude to the different school districts about what they'll be. As far as I know, it would be possible for the code to simply say we expect everybody to behave well here, and if they don't, then the principal's going to make sure that they do. That's a policy too. It may be way to the other end of the spectrum too simple, but I don't believe that every decision that the school board makes should be made out of fear of saying, well, we've got to do this because I think that's what they want in Frankfurt, and they've told us to do this and they told us to do that. I've been proven wrong a lot in these areas, but it's my personal feeling that we ought to make our decisions about what we want to do here in Glasgow and use every bit of the latitude that we have, even if we risk advice from able counsel that says we may be getting into an area where we may have to worry about getting sued or we may have some problem there.
You could very easily have a problem there.
Well, I think that the problem would be, the risk would be worth the benefit of having a simple policy.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. As a matter of fact, I think it would be fine. But I would tell you that the policies that are finally determined are still reviewed by the state. And I think if you're going to have more of what you're talking about, you're going to have to change some attitudes in Frankfurt.
Well, I think this is a good place to start.
Well, I'm not arguing with you there at all. I would agree that there's much merit in many of the things that you are saying, but you're not as free locally in the local districts to do some of the things that you're talking about
But you
as
can't,
you might think.
You can't win those arguments until you go ahead and take a position.
I agree with that. That's one change that you'd like to make insofar as discipline's concerned. Are there any other changes in the system that you have in mind that should be made?
You're back to me now?
Back to you, and then I'll...
Well, I'm not here since I've been to a couple of school board meetings, but I don't believe that qualifies me as an expert to be specific on a lot of things. But I will come back to the change that I think is my overreaching concern, and that is that everybody involved in the school system should think about the real, not perceived, but real competitive environment that they're in today. You know, this is a business. We're competing for students. We're trying to differentiate ourselves in the market to make our educational product better than others' educational product. And I believe one of the very first steps that can be taken to make us better competitors is the realization that the customer is right. That every decision, every interface between the customers, and I say the customers are the students and the taxpayers, and the school system should be one where that the school system people think, is that customer going to leave here not just a satisfied customer, but a raving fan, somebody who is going to become a proponent of this school system, or are they going to feel like they just got stamped and shoved in the same cubby hole with everybody else, and which is the way you get treated at some businesses, and you decide not to come back to those businesses. So an emphasis on customer service, way up the priority list, would be one of the new attitudes I'd like to bring to the board.
Jeff, do you have any ideas about some changes that should be made?
Well, Glasgow has always had a very fine system, but just like anything else, there's always room to grow, and there's room for improvement and growth. I'd like to see the stands packed at every event, whether it be football, basketball, soccer, whatever. Maybe better athletic facilities would promote that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's a lot of money. People.
Better bleachers for the football.
Yeah, well, you know, we're working on the press booth
right
now. But you can't lose sight as to why your students are in school either, and that's academics. That's number one. We've got to make sure that these students are prepared. As I understand it, I believe about 70% of our students go on to college. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of preparation for that. I think we offer, at this point, 4, I think, AP courses at the high school, mm-hmm. possibly discussions of adding another one next year. Those are college-level courses preparing these students for what's ahead. The students that don't go on to college, that enter the workforce, they have to be prepared too. You can't just say, well, we're going to focus on AP courses and focus on the kids going to school, on into higher learning. We have to make the commitment, and as a board, I think that's part of our responsibility to make sure that those commitments are followed through with, to make sure that our students, when they leave Glasgow High School, are as well prepared as they can be for what lies ahead.
Cookie, do you propose any changes?
I agree with everything that Jeff has said, and I especially agree with what he said about the non-college bound student. I think Glasgow has probably always served the college bound student better than the non-college bound. And anymore, students graduating from high school and not going to college cannot expect to go out into the world of work and get a good paying factory job without a lot of skills that should be taught in the high school, that start in the elementary school, that Kara has driven, which is, you know, be able to think critically, solve problems independently and in groups, and be able to communicate, and have a lot of skills, technological skills. We've got to prepare these students, and that's an improvement that needs to be made in the system. And I might say that one thing that can help this are these school to work programs and these business and industry partnerships. These are wonderful, and I would like to see them expanded, but that does get the child out into the workplace. They can see what careers are out there and what skills they're going to need, and it will hopefully make some of these students make the connection between doing well in school and getting a good job. That school is important.
One of the other arguments about Kara, and it is also tied in or has been tied in with the test program, is that there's not enough emphasis in Kara, or based on Kara, on the 3 R's, and that there should be more emphasis on the 3 R's and less emphasis on the portfolios. Cookie, you got any comment about that?
Yes, I do. I don't know where the idea came that we're not teaching the 3 R's. You cannot take these curious tests and answer these open-ended questions without knowing the basic facts of mathematics and communication. You can't write a good portfolio without knowing your basic facts. What Kara has done and what the Curious Tests drive is not only knowing the basic facts, but being able to apply them. It's just like, what good does it do if you've got a worksheet of 50 multiplication problems and you can work every one of them and make 100 on it, but yet you can't do a reading problem. You cannot take that knowledge and apply it. And that is what we're working on.
Billy, you got any ideas whether we're neglecting the 3 R's, or do you agree with Cookie?
I certainly, I guess I agree with Cookie. I don't believe that they're neglecting the 3 R's at all. I think that there's just kind of a human natural response to assume that when you see one of these portfolios with 2 or 3 pages of writing and there's a lot of misspelled words in there, that you from the way we were educated, we're not looking at the big picture of was this child constructing these thoughts properly. We just kind of we're doing the spell check, we're looking to see what's misspelled. I don't really think that our kids are doing any worse at spelling or multiplication than they've ever done, and that's purely my perspective. But I'm a firm believer that we have to de-emphasize rote learning in today's society. The things that we're trying to learn about are so fluid and ever-changing that there's no way you can print textbooks fast enough and tell kids to go home and memorize these 2 chapters before that body of knowledge has shifted. So yeah, I think we're doing the right thing by trying to teach kids how to think. Actually, all we're trying to do is rediscover how kids think. I mean, they come into school in the 1st grade knowing very well how to think and how to learn. They're like sponges at that level, and historically we have, and not just Glasgow, but education in general in the second half of the industrial age has kind of forgotten how kids learn, and we've taken, they come in like sponges, and by the time they leave high school, they're pretty certain they don't know how to do anything. And all we've got to do is just kind of rediscover what's already known. How do we teach them how to keep learning the way they came in?
I think that's a really important skill that you have to teach children today is lifelong learning, and how to keep learning, because technology and knowledge is changing so fast, and the workplace, they've got to constantly relearn skills in the workplace. Yes. And so we've got to prepare kids to be able to do this.
Do you think the 3 R's are being neglected, Jeff?
Absolutely not. I've seen this firsthand with, and I'm sure everyone here has, but with my 2 daughters now, and my oldest in the 5th grade and my youngest in the 1st, well, I guess I should say P1 would be the proper term for that. They come home, my youngest especially, bubbling with, this is what I learned today. They're sponges is a good term for that, because they soak everything that's around them. And the 3 R's are certainly not being neglected. They're being taught differently than they were when we were in school. The students of today are not, maybe not as receptive to the techniques that were used when we were in school. It requires a different way of teaching. And maybe some people may look at this and say, well, I didn't learn it that way. They must not be doing this right. When in fact, they are doing it right. They're doing a very good job at it. It's just different.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. It's just different than what we have seen.
Basically, Jeff, what do you think is the purpose of an education?
That's a good question too. You can't function in the world without some type of education. And I think the better education you have, the better you're able to function at whatever you choose to do. Whether you go to medical school and become a neurosurgeon, or if you decide to own your own business.
Cookie, what do you think is the basic purpose of an education?
I agree with Jeff. It's to make sure that our children can function in the world. I mean, it could be as simple a thing as driving a car and being able to read a stop sign or balance your checkbook. You can't function without these skills.
Billy?
A wise man once said that education was the only way by which man could be free of his environment. And I believe that that's the only thing that changed us from being a society of hunters and gatherers to an agrarian society to an industrial and now to an information-based society is that we have separated ourselves from our environment by learning more about how to manipulate our environment. That may be kind of a highfalutin answer to a straightforward question, but all the good stuff had already been said, so I'll say that.
Well, basically, could we say that the basic purpose of an education is to teach one how to think, how to obtain knowledge of certain technicalities, and where to find what he doesn't know, but being able to recognize what he doesn't know?
I wouldn't say that, because from the moment a child leaves the womb until they come into our professional education environment, they learn exponentially more than we ever teach them after that. So I don't think we're teaching them how to think. They already know that. And they already know how to learn. What we're trying to do is recruit people to be members of an ordered society.
Well, you and I can argue that sometime later.
Okay.
I would disagree with you, and you would disagree with me. But one last question to each of you. Why do you want to be on the school board, Billy?
Well, I want to be on the school board because I have been involved in the various activities of our education system for a number of years, more than I'm even going to fool with talking about right now, but I have been one of those people that has been involved in a lot of the things that the schools are doing. That involvement has caused me, in my own inimitable way, to be critical of some things that the schools have been doing. And I'm also critical of people who criticize but refuse to get involved and try to change. So I got to where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror.
So you think you can change some of these things, is why you want to be on the board? I'm cutting you short.
Yes.
Because I want to give the others an opportunity.
That's correct.
Why do you want to remain there, Cookie?
Well, one of my main reasons for wanting to remain on the school board is that I still have a child in the school system. And I'm deeply interested in public education. I'm a great believer in public education, and I feel that this is a way that I can serve my community, which has been so good to me. Another reason I want to remain on the school board is I think it's essential that a mother be on the school board. She makes up 50% of the parent population, and she should be at least 20% of the board population.
Jeff?
Well, as I've mentioned earlier, I have a vested interest in my two daughters. They're both at the elementary school level now, and I want to make sure that they go through the school system with having some of the same good memories that I had when I went through the school system. And I'm a firm believer in public education.
Thank you. I think all of you, each one of you, is well qualified for the board. I certainly appreciate your being here tonight. I think it's well that the public have an opportunity to view you and listen to you. And as far as the public's concerned, I urge all of you out there to be sure and go to vote, not only in this race, but in all the races. And thank you very much, and good night.